I'm so glad you found your way here. Welcome to Get Sleepy Science. Right now, beneath winter's frozen surface, entire ecosystems are breathing, moving, and surviving in ways most people never imagine. Tonight, you'll discover how life persists through the coldest months and understand why winter darkness is not an ending, but a different kind of living. Wherever you are right now, perhaps wrapped in warmth while winter waits outside, or simply feeling the stillness of a cold night, allow yourself to settle into this exploration. We'll discover 100 nature facts about winter's hidden life. From creatures sleeping beneath snow that insulates like blankets, to trees whose roots stay active in frozen soil, to the moment when dormancy becomes the wisest form of survival. These calm explorations of Earth's wisdom plant seeds of tranquility in restless hearts. We're building toward a premium, uninterrupted experience, where every moment can be intentionally designed for your deepest rest. Your gentle support, a like, a subscribe, a quiet share, brings us closer to creating this protected sanctuary for every tired mind who finds their way here. One peaceful night, one sleepy soul at a time. Sink into your favorite resting spot. Allow your muscles to release, each breath growing softer. There's no need to remember these winter facts. Just notice that warm, drowsy calm washing over you, like gentle snowfall settling on quiet ground, each flake drawing you deeper into restful, effortless sleep. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're resting where ancient forests whisper secrets of eternal wisdom. Let your mind sink with nature's calm. And now we begin. Winter seems like it should be impossible for life. When temperatures plunge below freezing, when daylight shrinks to just a few precious hours, when snow buries the ground under feet of crystalline ice, you might wonder how anything survives at all. The cold alone can harm cells by freezing the water inside them, causing ice crystals to form sharp edges that can damage delicate membranes. Darkness halts photosynthesis, cutting off the foundation of most food chains. Snow creates a barrier that seems impenetrable, sealing away nutrients and access to food. Yet winter ecosystems don't just survive, they persist with remarkable resilience. Perhaps winter is not the enemy of life, but simply a different stage in its eternal dance. The boreal forest, also called the taiga, covers more than 11% of Earth's land surface. Stretching across northern Canada, Scandinavia, and Russia, this vast ecosystem experiences some of the planet's harshest winters. Temperatures regularly drop to -40 degrees Fahrenheit, a point where Fahrenheit and Celsius meet. Here, winter darkness can last nearly 20 hours each day, with the sun barely cresting the horizon. Snow accumulates to depths of 6 feet or more, persisting for 8 months in some regions. These conditions would seem uninhabitable, yet the boreal forest teems with life. Pine martens hunt beneath the snow, crossbills crack frozen pine cones, and lynx prowl through drifts. This forest proves that winter supports entire communities adapted over millions of years. Water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, but living cells face a problem that pure water doesn't. When ice forms inside a cell, it doesn't happen gently. Ice crystals grow with sharp edges, expanding as water molecules lock into rigid structures. These crystals can damage cell membranes and disrupt the delicate structures that keep cells functioning. For organisms without protection, even a brief freeze can mean death. A single night of hard frost can kill tender plants, turning their leaves black by morning. Insects caught unprepared will freeze solid, their bodies brittle as glass. The challenge is universal across winter ecosystems. Survive the freeze, or find a way to avoid it entirely. The Arctic experiences polar night, a period when the sun doesn't rise above the horizon for weeks or even months. In Barrow, Alaska, now called Utqiagvik, polar night lasts from mid-November through mid-January. 65 days of continuous darkness. During this time, temperatures average around -15 degrees Fahrenheit, but can plummet to -50 during cold snaps. Photosynthesis becomes impossible without sunlight, collapsing the base of the food web that normally feeds herbivores and, in turn, predators. Yet Arctic foxes still hunt, snowy owls still nest, and polar bears continue their wanderings across frozen seas. Marine ecosystems fare slightly better, with some light penetrating the ice, but terrestrial life must cope with both darkness and cold simultaneously. The Arctic demonstrates that winter's challenges are not just about temperature, but about the absence of light itself, which fundamentally reshapes how energy flows through ecosystems. Snow acts as insulation, a fact that seems counterintuitive since we associate snow with cold. But fresh powder snow can contain 90% or more air trapped between ice crystals in a complex lattice. Air is an excellent insulator, which is why double-paned windows and puffy winter coats work so well. They trap air in small pockets. When snow blankets the ground, it creates a microclimate beneath its surface where temperatures remain relatively stable, often hovering around 32 degrees Fahrenheit, even when the air above might be 0 or below. This space beneath the snow is called the subnivean zone, from Latin words meaning under snow. Here, small mammals, like voles and shrews, tunnel through the insulating layer, accessing seeds, roots, and insects, while protected from both extreme cold and predators. The subnivean zone transforms snow from a barrier into a shelter, allowing life to persist in what looks, from above, like a frozen wasteland. Trees face a unique winter challenge because they cannot migrate or burrow underground. A mature oak tree might contain several hundred gallons of water in its trunk, branches, and roots during summer. If that water froze solid, the expanding ice would split the wood apart like a log in a fire. Yet trees in temperate and boreal regions regularly survive temperatures well below freezing. Their strategy involves removing water from living cells before winter arrives. As days shorten in autumn, trees sense the changing light through specialized photoreceptors. This triggers a cascade of hormonal changes, primarily involving a compound called abscisic acid, which signals cells to become dormant. Water moves out of cells and into spaces between them, where freezing is less destructive. The cells themselves become more concentrated with sugars, proteins, and other compounds that lower the freezing point, much like antifreeze in a car radiator. By the time hard frost arrives, trees have essentially dehydrated their most vulnerable tissues, allowing them to survive temperatures that would otherwise tear them apart from within. Food becomes scarce in winter not just because plants stop growing, but because the entire productivity of ecosystems declines substantially. During summer, a single acre of grassland might produce several tons of plant material through photosynthesis, supporting countless insects, small mammals, and birds. But in winter, with reduced sunlight and frozen ground, primary productivity, the rate at which plants convert sunlight into biomass, becomes very low, sometimes just a few percent of summer rates. This collapse ripples up the food chain. Herbivores that depend on fresh plant matter must either store food during abundance, switch to alternative food sources like bark and twigs, or enter dormancy to avoid starvation. Predators face similar challenges as their prey becomes scarce or hidden. The northern shrike, a small predatory bird, solves this by impaling excess prey on thorns during autumn, creating larders of frozen mice and insects it can retrieve during lean winter months. Winter reshapes not just individual survival strategies, but the entire architecture of who eats whom. The boreal forest experiences winter for up to 8 months each year, leaving only a brief growing season of perhaps 3 to 4 months when plants can photosynthesize and animals can raise young. This compressed timeline creates intense evolutionary pressure. Trees like spruce and pine have adapted to maximize their efficiency during the short summer. With needle-shaped leaves they can keep year-round, rather than regrowing them each spring. Animals synchronize their reproductive cycles precisely with this narrow window, timing births so young reach independence before the next winter arrives. Caribou, for example, give birth within a span of just 10 days each spring, their calves standing within hours and running within days, racing against the calendar. The brevity of the growing season makes winter not just a challenge to endure, but the dominant feature that shapes every aspect of life in northern ecosystems. Energy conservation becomes critical in winter because food is scarce, while the cold demands more calories just to maintain body temperature. Warm-blooded animals, or endotherms, must keep their internal temperature around 98 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit, regardless of external conditions. In summer, this requires some energy, but is relatively manageable. In winter, when air temperatures drop 50, 60, or even 80 degrees below body temperature, the energy cost of staying warm can increase dramatically. A small bird like a chickadee, weighing less than half an ounce, must consume food equal to about 35% of its body weight daily just to survive a cold winter night. That's equivalent to a 150-pound person eating 50 pounds of food every day. This explains why so many winter strategies, hibernation, torpor, migration, revolve around reducing energy demands rather than simply finding more food. So yes, winter ecosystems face tremendous challenges that seem almost insurmountable. The cold threatens to freeze cells, darkness eliminates photosynthesis, snow buries resources, and the sheer length of northern winters leaves little time for growth and reproduction. Yet these challenges have not created dead zones where life disappears for half the year. Instead, they've driven the evolution of remarkable survival strategies, from the subnivean zones where small mammals tunnel beneath insulating snow, to the dormancy mechanisms that let trees shut down without dying, to the precise timing that allows animals to compress their entire reproductive cycle into a few brief summer weeks. Winter ecosystems stay alive, not by resisting these challenges, but by adapting to them, finding ways to thrive in conditions that would kill unprepared organisms within hours. Hibernation is perhaps the most famous winter survival strategy, but true hibernation is rarer than most people realize. When a groundhog or a bear hibernates, they're actually doing something quite different. True hibernators, like ground squirrels, bats, and hedgehogs, undergo profound physiological changes. Their body temperature drops dramatically, sometimes to just a few degrees above freezing. A hibernating Arctic ground squirrel's body temperature can fall to 26 degrees Fahrenheit, below the freezing point of water, without the animal dying. Their heart rate plummets from 200 beats per minute to as few as 5. Breathing slows to one breath every several minutes, or stops entirely for up to an hour. Metabolism drops to just 2 to 3% of normal levels, allowing the animal to survive on stored fat for months. This state isn't sleep. It's closer to suspended animation, a controlled near-death state that lets small mammals survive months without eating. Bears don't truly hibernate in the scientific sense, though they do enter a state called torpor. A hibernating black bear's body temperature drops only about 12 degrees Fahrenheit, from around 100 degrees to about 88 degrees. This is a much smaller decrease than true hibernators experience. Their heart rate slows significantly, from about 40 to 50 beats per minute, down to 8 to 10, and they don't eat, drink, urinate, or defecate for up to 7 months. But they remain somewhat aware of their surroundings and can wake up relatively quickly if disturbed. unlike a ground squirrel in deep hibernation, which takes hours to rewarm and become alert. Female bears even give birth during winter torpor, nursing their cubs in the den while still in this reduced metabolic state. This remarkable feat allows bears to survive winter without the vulnerability that comes with true hibernation's death-like state. Antifreeze proteins represent one of nature's most elegant molecular solutions to winter's challenge. These specialized proteins, found in Arctic fish, insects, plants, and even some bacteria, work by binding to tiny ice crystals as they begin to form. Picture ice growing like a crystal garden, with water molecules joining the growing lattice structure. Antifreeze proteins attach to these growing ice crystals and prevent them from getting larger, maintaining ice in a harmless microscopic state rather than letting it grow into damaging formations. Some Arctic fish, like the Antarctic toothfish, have these proteins circulating in their blood, allowing them to survive in waters that are actually below the normal freezing point of blood. The salt water around them freezes at lower temperatures than fresh water. Without these proteins, ice crystals would propagate rapidly through their bodies, killing them within minutes. Supercooling is another strategy some organisms use to survive freezing temperatures. This process involves cooling water below its freezing point, without it actually turning to ice. Pure water can supercool to around -48 degrees Fahrenheit before spontaneously freezing. Though in nature, supercooling usually only works to around 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit because tiny particles in body fluids trigger ice formation. Some insects, like certain beetles and wasps, can supercool by removing or masking these ice-nucleating particles from their body fluids. They produce specialized proteins that bind to bacteria and other particles that might serve as ice nucleation sites. Additionally, they may void their gut contents before winter, eliminating food particles that could seed ice formation. This allows their body fluids to remain liquid even below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, keeping their cells intact through cold snaps that would otherwise kill them. Evergreen trees, conifers like spruce, pine, and fir, keep their needles through winter, but these needles are specially adapted to survive the cold. Unlike the broad, flat leaves of deciduous trees, conifer needles are narrow and coated with a thick, waxy cuticle that helps prevent water loss. This matters because winter presents a paradoxical drought situation. Even though snow surrounds the tree, the frozen ground makes water essentially unavailable to roots. If evergreen needles continued transpiring, releasing water vapor, the tree could literally die of thirst, despite being surrounded by frozen water. The needles reduce water loss through several adaptations. Their small surface area, protective waxy coating, and stomata, pores for gas exchange, that can close tightly. Additionally, the needles contain their own antifreeze compounds that prevent ice formation in their cells. This allows evergreens to keep their photosynthetic machinery ready for the occasional warm, sunny winter day when they can actually photosynthesize briefly, giving them an advantage over deciduous trees that must start from scratch each spring. Permafrost, permanently frozen ground, covers about 15% of land in the northern hemisphere. In these regions, only the top layer of soil thaws during summer, creating what's called the active layer, typically about 1 to 10 feet deep depending on location. Below this, the ground remains frozen year-round, sometimes to depths of several thousand feet in places like Siberia, where permafrost has existed for hundreds of thousands of years. This frozen foundation profoundly affects ecosystems. Tree roots cannot penetrate permafrost, limiting forests to areas where the active layer is deep enough. Water cannot drain through permafrost, creating wetlands and bogs, even in areas that don't receive much precipitation. Recent research shows that permafrost contains about twice as much carbon as currently exists in Earth's atmosphere, locked away in frozen plant and animal remains. As climate change causes permafrost to thaw in some regions, this stored carbon is released as carbon dioxide and methane, potentially amplifying warming in a feedback loop. The snowshoe hare undergoes one of nature's most striking winter transformations. During summer, its fur is brown, providing camouflage against earth and vegetation. But as autumn days grow shorter, the changing light triggers hormonal shifts that cause the hare to molt and regrow its coat in pure white, matching winter snow. This color change is triggered by photoperiod, the length of day, rather than temperature, which is why unseasonably warm autumns with little snow can leave white hares conspicuous against brown ground. The transformation isn't just cosmetic. The winter coat is also denser, with more insulating underfur to trap warm air next to the skin. Each hair shaft is hollow, filled with air that provides additional insulation. The hare's feet also change, growing extra fur on the pads and between the toes, acting like snowshoes that distribute weight and prevent sinking into soft snow. These adaptations let snowshoe hares remain active through winter, feeding on twigs and bark, while avoiding both predators and hypothermia. Ptarmigan, birds of the Arctic tundra and high mountains, take camouflage even further than snowshoe hares. These grouse relatives molt 3 times per year, changing from mottled brown in summer to match tundra vegetation, to mixed plumage in autumn, to pure white in winter, except for black tail feathers and, in males, a black stripe through the eye. But their winter adaptations go beyond color. Ptarmigan grow feathers on their legs and feet, creating insulation that covers their toes like socks, helping them walk on snow and conserve heat. They burrow into snowdrifts to roost, creating small caves where their body heat is trapped, allowing them to survive Arctic nights that can reach -40 or colder. Their digestive system even adapts, their gut becoming larger and longer in winter to extract maximum nutrition from the tough willow twigs and buds that sustain them when other food disappears. The dark-eyed junco, a small songbird common across much of North America, doesn't migrate away from winter, but instead descends from mountains to valleys or moves southward within the continent, following the edge of snow. Recent research has revealed that juncos undergo remarkable physiological changes to prepare for winter. They increase their fat stores by up to 50% of body weight, essentially becoming tiny feathered balloons of energy reserves. They also grow more feathers, increasing their insulation. Studies using doubly labeled water, a technique that tracks metabolic rate, show that juncos in winter burn through energy at rates that would require them to consume 25 to 30% of their body weight in seeds daily if they were using food directly. Instead, they rely partly on fat reserves built during autumn abundance. On the coldest nights, they enter shallow torpor, allowing their body temperature to drop by about 10 degrees Fahrenheit, reducing energy needs by nearly 30%. Ice formation itself can be controlled by some organisms in a process called freeze tolerance. Unlike antifreeze proteins that prevent ice formation, freeze-tolerant organisms actually allow ice to form in their bodies, but control where it happens. Wood frogs, found across northern North America, can survive having up to 65% of their body water freeze solid. As temperatures drop, ice begins forming in spaces between cells and in body cavities, guided by specialized ice nucleating proteins that ensure freezing happens in less critical areas. As extracellular ice forms, it draws water out of cells, concentrating glucose and other protective compounds inside cells to levels that prevent intracellular freezing. The frog's heart stops beating. Its breathing ceases. By any apparent measure, it is dormant. Yet when spring arrives and the frog thaws, its heart restarts, breathing resumes, and within hours it hops away, fully functional. This freeze tolerance allows wood frogs to survive winters, even in areas where they cannot burrow below the frost line. The boreal chickadee and black-capped chickadee, small birds weighing about half an ounce, survive winter nights that would seem impossible for such tiny creatures. On a night when temperatures drop to -20 degrees Fahrenheit, a chickadee must maintain its body temperature around 108 degrees, a gradient of 128 degrees between inside and outside. To accomplish this, chickadees employ multiple strategies. They cache thousands of seeds during autumn, hiding them in bark crevices throughout their territory, and possess remarkable spatial memory that allows them to relocate these hidden food stores months later. At night, they seek out dense evergreen cover or tree cavities that provide shelter from wind. They can enter regulated hypothermia, dropping their body temperature by about 22 degrees Fahrenheit overnight, reducing metabolic demands by 30%. They also shiver continuously through the night to generate heat, burning through their fat reserves at an astonishing rate. Snow structure matters enormously for the organisms living beneath it. Fresh powder, snow, light and fluffy, provides excellent insulation but little structural support. As snow settles and compacts, it becomes denser and stronger, eventually transforming into what snow scientists call depth hoar. Near the ground, coarse, crystalline snow, formed by repeated cycles of sublimation and recrystallization as water vapor moves through the snowpack. This structure creates the complex three-dimensional spaces of the subnivean zone, where small mammals tunnel and travel. Recent studies using time-lapse cameras placed beneath artificial snow cover have revealed extensive networks of tunnels created by voles, shrews, and mice, with different species sometimes sharing tunnel systems. Temperature readings show this zone maintains relatively stable conditions, typically around 28 to 32 degrees Fahrenheit, even when air temperatures plunge far below zero. Deciduous trees must survive winter without their leaves, which seems straightforward until you consider how cold can damage woody tissue. Tree bark provides some insulation, but wood is mostly water, and extreme cold can still cause problems. One phenomenon called frost cracking occurs when water in wood freezes and expands, sometimes with enough force to split the trunk with a sound like a gunshot. You can occasionally hear these cracks echoing through winter forests on the coldest nights. Trees mitigate this through several mechanisms. They develop deep dormancy, triggered by both shortening days and dropping temperatures, which shuts down active growth and hardens cells. Cold acclimation increases the concentration of sugars and other compounds in wood cells, lowering the freezing point. Some trees also develop seasonal wood differences, with denser late wood formed at the end of the growing season, providing structural strength. These adaptations allow trees like birch and aspen to survive temperatures of -60 degrees Fahrenheit or lower in the depths of boreal winters. Winter days provide less light, not only because days are shorter, but also because the sun's angle is lower, so light must pass through more atmosphere, scattering and weakening before reaching the ground. At 60 degrees north latitude, the latitude of Oslo, Norway, or Anchorage, Alaska, the sun, at winter solstice, reaches only about 6 degrees above the horizon at midday. This means sunlight passes through nearly 10 times more atmosphere than when the sun is directly overhead, reducing its intensity dramatically. For ecosystems, this matters because photosynthesis depends on light intensity, not just duration. Even on a sunny winter day, the rate of photosynthesis may be only 10 to 20% of summer rates. This is why evergreen trees, despite keeping their needles, do relatively little photosynthesis in winter. The combination of low light angles, short days, and often cloudy skies creates a long season where plants essentially shut down, waiting for the return of productive light conditions in spring. By understanding these challenges, the cold that threatens to freeze cells, the darkness that eliminates photosynthesis, the snow that buries food and alters landscapes, the sheer length of winter that compresses the time available for growth and reproduction, we begin to see why winter ecosystems are so remarkable. Life persists not through brute resistance, but through elegant adaptation. Every organism active in winter has solved multiple interconnected problems simultaneously. How to stay warm or tolerate cold, how to find food or survive without eating, how to avoid predators in a simplified landscape, how to prepare during autumn abundance for months of scarcity. These are not simple solutions but elaborate strategies refined over millions of years. As we continue exploring how winter ecosystems stay alive, remember that we're witnessing not survival despite winter, but survival because of winter. Life shaped by cold into forms both strange and beautiful. Let's pause here and notice your body. As you breathe out slowly, appreciate each tiny cell inside. Trillions of organisms working in silence, heart beating, lungs breathing, brain thinking, all without your command. Notice the gentle sensations on your skin, in your muscles, along your spine. You are a complete ecosystem, diverse, self-balancing. Just like winter forests surviving through adaptation, your body maintains its own perfect temperature, heals its own small wounds, balances without thought. Feel the warmth you generate, the steady rhythm of breath, the quiet miracle of being alive in this moment. Now we continue. Animals prepare for winter through a process called hyperphagia, which means excessive eating. During late summer and autumn, bears, ground squirrels, and many other mammals enter a feeding frenzy, consuming vast quantities of food to build fat reserves. A black bear might gain 3 to 4 pounds per day during autumn, increasing its body weight by 25 to 30%. This fat serves multiple purposes: insulation against cold, energy reserves to burn during dormancy, and in pregnant females, fuel for producing milk to nurse cubs born during winter. The timing of hyperphagia is triggered by changing day length, which affects hormone production, particularly involving leptin and insulin. These hormones signal the brain to increase appetite and reduce satiety. The animal feels constantly hungry and never quite full. This biological program ensures adequate fat storage before food becomes scarce, transforming autumn abundance into winter survival. Caching behavior, storing food for later use, is crucial for many winter-active animals. Clark's nutcrackers, birds of high elevation pine forests, cache tens of thousands of pine seeds each autumn, hiding them in thousands of separate locations across their territory. Each bird creates between 5,000 and 10,000 separate caches, burying seeds under rocks, in bark crevices, or beneath soil. Remarkably, they remember the locations of these caches months later, retrieving them throughout winter with about 70 to 90% accuracy. Recent neurological studies show that the hippocampus, the brain region involved in spatial memory, is proportionally larger in Clark's nutcrackers than in birds that don't cache food. This suggests their brains have evolved specifically to support the memory demands of food storage. Caching transforms autumn abundance into winter security, spreading resources across time when nature provides none. Migration, while it seems like avoiding winter rather than adapting to it, is itself a sophisticated survival strategy, requiring remarkable capabilities. Arctic terns fly approximately 44,000 miles annually, traveling from Arctic breeding grounds to Antarctic waters and back, following summer around the globe. This journey requires navigation abilities that we're only beginning to understand. Birds use multiple cues. The position of the sun and stars, Earth's magnetic field, detected through specialized proteins in their eyes called cryptochromes, visual landmarks, and possibly even smell. They also must time their departure precisely. Leave too early, and they abandon feeding opportunities. Leave too late, and they risk encountering storms or finding southern habitats already occupied. Migration requires building substantial fat reserves, then burning through them at enormous rates. A black-pole warbler, weighing about half an ounce, flies non-stop for up to 88 hours over the Atlantic Ocean, burning through half its body weight in fat to complete the journey. The Arctic ground squirrel holds the record for cold tolerance among mammals. During hibernation, its body temperature drops to an astonishing -2.9 degrees Fahrenheit, below the freezing point of water, without freezing. How is this possible? The squirrel supercools its body fluids through a combination of strategies. First, it accumulates high concentrations of protective compounds before hibernation, including sugars, certain amino acids, and specialized proteins. These act like antifreeze, lowering the freezing point of body fluids. Second, the squirrel eliminates particles from its blood that might trigger ice formation. Third, during the deepest cold, its body enters a state where metabolism nearly stops. Heart rate drops to about 5 beats per minute. Breathing occurs only once every few minutes. Yet, every few weeks, the squirrel must warm up slightly, raising its temperature to near normal for about 12 hours before cooling back down. Scientists believe these periodic arousals allow the squirrel to clear metabolic waste products that accumulate even during hibernation's slow metabolism. Torpor is a less extreme form of reduced metabolism used by many animals. Unlike hibernation, which lasts for months, torpor can be daily, called daily torpor, or last for a few days to weeks. Hummingbirds, despite being tropical creatures, use daily torpor even in summer. At night, when they cannot feed, a hummingbird's body temperature drops from about 104 degrees Fahrenheit to around 50 degrees, and its heart rate plummets from over 1,000 beats per minute to about 50. This reduces nighttime energy expenditure by about 60 to 70%, preventing starvation during the long hours without nectar. Some hummingbird species that venture into mountains use torpor routinely, allowing them to survive cold nights at high elevations. The ability to enter and exit torpor requires specialized brown adipose tissue, brown fat, which can generate heat rapidly through a process called non-shivering thermogenesis, allowing the bird to warm up quickly when dawn arrives. Tree buds form in summer, but remain dormant through winter, protected by specialized scales that are essentially modified leaves. These bud scales overlap tightly, creating a waterproof seal coated with resins and waxes. Inside, next year's leaves or flowers exist in miniature form, already structured, but not yet grown. The buds must remain dormant despite occasional warm spells that might trick them into opening prematurely, which would expose tender tissues to later frosts. This is accomplished through a requirement for chilling. Buds must accumulate a certain amount of cold exposure, measured in chilling hours below a threshold temperature, usually around 45 degrees Fahrenheit, before they become capable of responding to warmth. This ensures buds only open after winter has genuinely passed, not during brief warm periods. Different tree species have different chilling requirements, which is why some trees leaf out earlier in spring than others, and why the same tree species will behave differently in warmer versus colder climates. The ruffed grouse, a chicken-sized bird of northern forests, grows specialized scales on its toes each autumn that function like snowshoes. These scales, called pectinations, are tiny, stiff projections that extend from the sides of each toe, doubling the surface area of the foot. This adaptation allows grouse to walk on soft snow without sinking, providing access to food sources like frozen buds and catkins on trees that would otherwise be unreachable if the bird was post-holing through deep drifts. At night, grouse dive directly into soft snow, creating a burrow where they roost, insulated from wind and extreme cold. Snow temperatures might be only 25 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit, cold, but much warmer than air temperatures that could be -20 or colder. The grouse remains in these snow roosts for up to 20 hours during the coldest weather, emerging only briefly to feed during the middle of the day when temperatures are warmest. Insects use diverse strategies to survive freezing temperatures, collectively called cold hardening. As autumn approaches, many insects respond to shortening days by accumulating cryoprotectants, substances that protect against freezing. Glycerol is common, along with sorbitol and trehalose, sugars that can reach concentrations of 20% or more of body weight. These compounds lower the freezing point of body fluids and protect cell membranes and proteins from freeze damage. Some insects also dehydrate themselves, moving water from their cells to reduce ice formation risk. The morning cloak butterfly, which overwinters as an adult hiding beneath bark, can survive temperatures down to -25 degrees Fahrenheit by producing glycerol and other antifreeze compounds. Woolly bear caterpillars in the Arctic can freeze solid and thaw out repeatedly, surviving temperatures down to -90 degrees. They accomplish this through freeze tolerance, allowing controlled ice formation in non-critical tissues while protecting vital organs. Beavers remain active beneath the ice all winter, demonstrating remarkable behavioral adaptations to cold. Before freeze up, beavers cut and store branches underwater near their lodge, creating an underwater pantry that remains accessible even when the pond surface freezes solid. The lodge itself, built from mud and sticks, provides excellent insulation. Inside the lodge, where the beaver family sleeps on a raised platform above water level, temperatures remain near freezing, cold for humans, but vastly warmer than outside air, and comfortable for animals with thick fur and layers of fat. The beaver's fur is among the densest in the animal kingdom, with about 12,000 hairs per square inch, compared to about 600 hairs per square inch on human heads. This fur traps air for insulation, and beavers meticulously maintain it by grooming with specialized claws and applying oil from anal scent glands. Active beneath the ice, beavers can continue eating stored bark and visiting multiple underwater food caches throughout winter. Musk oxen of the Arctic face winter temperatures that can drop to -60 degrees Fahrenheit, with winds that create deadly wind chills. These large herbivores survive through exceptional insulation. Their fur consists of 2 layers: a coarse outer layer called guard hairs, which can be nearly 2 feet long, and an undercoat called kiviut, one of the warmest natural fibers known. Kiviut is 8 times warmer than sheep's wool by weight and softer than cashmere. This dual-layer system traps warm air close to the skin, while shedding snow and ice from the outer surface. Musk oxen also have a compact body shape with small ears and tail, reducing surface area exposed to cold, a principle called Allen's rule, which states that animals in colder climates tend to have smaller extremities than closely related animals in warmer climates. When blizzards strike, musk oxen huddle together, presenting their backs to the wind while calves shelter in the center of the group, sharing warmth communally. Some plants remain green all winter under the snow, photosynthesizing whenever conditions permit. Wintergreen, a small plant of northern forests, keeps its leaves through winter, and on warm, sunny days when snow melts temporarily, these leaves can photosynthesize even in January. The leaves contain anthocyanins, red pigments that appear purple or bronze in winter, which help protect chlorophyll from damage caused by bright light reflecting off snow. When light hits frozen leaves, it can create damaging reactive oxygen species because the photosynthetic machinery cannot process light energy normally when cold. Anthocyanins absorb this excess light energy and dissipate it safely as heat. Other plants, like certain mosses and algae, can photosynthesize in sub-freezing temperatures, with some snow algae actually preferring near-freezing conditions. These photosynthetic organisms growing on snow surfaces tint the snow green or red in some alpine and Arctic locations, producing small amounts of organic matter that support microscopic food webs living in and on snow itself. Owls have multiple adaptations that make them supreme winter predators. Unlike most birds, owls grow dense feathers on their legs and feet, insulating extremities that would otherwise lose heat rapidly. Their feathers are structured differently than other birds, with soft edges and downy surfaces that allow silent flight. This silence is crucial in winter, when snow muffles other sounds, and prey must be detected by hearing alone. Great grey owls, large owls of boreal forests, hunt almost exclusively by sound, able to locate voles moving beneath 2 feet of snow. Their facial disc, the flattened face surrounded by specialized feathers, acts like a parabolic reflector, channeling sound to their ears with remarkable precision. Owls' ears are asymmetrical, positioned at slightly different heights on their skull, allowing them to triangulate sound sources in 3 dimensions. When a great grey owl hears a vole moving under snow, it can pinpoint its location to within inches and plunge through the snow to catch prey it never actually sees. Caribou, called reindeer in Eurasia, migrate hundreds of miles between summer and winter ranges, one of the longest migrations of any land mammal. Herds in northern Canada travel up to 3,000 miles annually. This migration allows them to follow food availability. Summer brings them to tundra, where plant growth is lush, while winter finds them in taiga forests, where they dig through snow to access lichens growing on the forest floor and hanging from trees. Their hooves are adapted for both summer and winter. In summer, the footpads are soft and spongy, providing traction on wet tundra. In winter, the pads shrink and harden, while the rim of the hoof becomes sharp, allowing caribou to dig through crusted snow to reach buried lichens. The clicking sound that caribou herds make while walking comes from tendons sliding over bones in their feet. This might help individuals keep track of the herd during blizzards when visibility drops to 0. Snow fleas are actually springtails, tiny arthropods about the size of a pinhead that remain active all winter. On warm, late winter days, they emerge by the thousands on snow surfaces, appearing as dark specks scattered across white. These creatures produce antifreeze proteins that keep their body fluids liquid down to temperatures around -6 degrees Fahrenheit. They feed on decaying organic matter, microorganisms, and fungi in soil and on snow surfaces, playing important roles in decomposition even during winter. Their name comes from their ability to jump. They have a forked tail-like structure folded beneath their body that can release like a spring, flinging them several inches into the air. Impressive for a creature smaller than a flea. Seeing thousands of snow fleas active on snow is a reminder that winter ecosystems are not frozen wastelands, but contain active life in forms we often overlook. These adaptation strategies reveal something profound about winter ecosystems. Life hasn't merely found ways to barely survive cold and darkness. It has adapted to thrive, finding niches that would not exist without winter's challenges. Hyperphagia and caching transform autumn abundance into winter fuel. Hibernation and torpor decouple survival from food availability, allowing animals to persist through months of scarcity. Migration connects distant ecosystems, with winter in one hemisphere supporting life from summer in another. Physical adaptations: thick fur, insulated feathers, antifreeze compounds turn cold from enemy to environment, something to accommodate rather than flee. Winter strategies are not desperate last resorts, but refined solutions, polished by millions of years of evolution, allowing ecosystems to maintain complexity and diversity year-round, not just during summer's ease. If you're still awake, still listening to winter's secrets, that means curiosity hasn't fully rested yet, and that's okay. Take a gentle breath. Feel the weight of your body on the bed, grounded like ancient stone beneath snow. We're wandering through nature's quiet wisdom together, through adaptations refined over millions of years, through survival strategies more elegant than we often imagine. There's no rush, no destination, just the slow uncovering of how life persists through cold. And we'll keep going, slowly. Beneath the snow lies an entire world most people never see, the subnivean zone. This space between snow surface and ground maintains relatively stable temperatures around 32 degrees Fahrenheit, even when air temperatures plunge to 0 or below. Small mammals create extensive tunnel networks here. Voles, mice, and shrews travel through these passages, accessing seeds, roots, and sleeping insects while protected from both cold and predators. Recent studies using miniature cameras placed beneath snow have revealed complex tunnel systems extending over areas of several thousand square feet. Different species use overlapping tunnel networks, sometimes encountering each other, sometimes cooperating, sometimes competing for prime feeding areas. The subnivean zone is not empty space. It's structured habitat, three-dimensional and complex, where meadows that appear lifeless above host bustling activity below. Soil remains active even when frozen. While the surface may freeze solid, deeper soil often stays above freezing, especially when insulated by snow. Even in frozen soil, microorganisms continue functioning at rates about 10 to 20% of summer activity. This matters enormously for decomposition and nutrient cycling. Leaf litter that falls in autumn doesn't simply wait for spring to decay. It begins breaking down immediately, processed by bacteria and fungi that remain active in cold temperatures. Some soil bacteria can function at temperatures as low as 15 degrees Fahrenheit, and fungal mycelia, the thread-like networks of fungi, grow slowly even in near-freezing conditions. This winter decomposition means nutrients are being released and processed continuously, not just during the growing season, maintaining the chemical cycles that support plant growth when warmth returns. Under frozen lakes and streams, life continues with surprising vigor. When ice forms on a lake's surface, it insulates the water below, preventing it from freezing solid, except in very shallow ponds. Water has unusual properties. Its maximum density occurs at 39 degrees Fahrenheit, not at freezing. This means water at 39 degrees sinks to the bottom while colder, less dense water stays near the surface where it freezes. The result is that even in the coldest climates, lake bottoms remain at temperatures around 39 degrees, just barely above freezing but liquid. Fish remain active, though sluggish, throughout winter. Northern pike hunt beneath the ice. Lake trout spawn in late autumn through early winter. Aquatic invertebrates continue their life cycles. Some aquatic insects even emerge as adults in midwinter, crawling out onto ice to mate before laying eggs back in frigid water, a strategy that avoids competition with the explosion of insect life in spring. Trees' roots remain alive and somewhat active even in winter. While above-ground growth ceases, roots in deeper soil layers where temperatures remain above freezing continue slow growth. They also maintain low levels of respiration, the metabolic process that produces energy. This matters because roots are essential for water and nutrient uptake, and they must be ready to rapidly increase activity when spring arrives. Recent research using mini-hisotron cameras, tiny cameras installed in clear tubes in soil, shows that fine root growth continues sporadically through winter in temperate forests, whenever soil temperatures rise above 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Tree roots also maintain mycorrhizal associations, symbiotic partnerships with fungi, through winter. These fungal partners help trees access water and nutrients in exchange for sugars. The fungal networks remain active at cooler temperatures than tree roots, continuing to deliver resources to their tree partners even when the trees are dormant. Hibernating mammals are not truly asleep, but in a carefully controlled state of reduced metabolism. Their body temperature drops, but not randomly. It's regulated, maintained at a lower set point, much like turning down a thermostat. This requires active management. If a hibernating ground squirrel's body temperature drops too low, metabolic processes activate to produce heat and raise temperature slightly. Hibernators also wake periodically throughout winter, perhaps every week or two, warming to near normal body temperature for 12 to 24 hours before cooling back down. Scientists are still debating why these arousals are necessary. They might allow the animal to sleep. Paradoxically, the hibernating state is so metabolically unusual that actual sleep is impossible. So arousals might let the brain catch up on REM sleep, or arousals might allow the immune system to function, fighting infections that could take hold during deep hibernation when immune defenses are minimal. Lichens, partnerships between fungi and algae or cyanobacteria, remain active in winter whenever conditions permit. Unlike vascular plants that must keep tissues above freezing, many lichens can photosynthesize at temperatures as low as 25 degrees Fahrenheit, and some Arctic species can function even colder. They accomplish this through unusual biochemistry. Their photosynthetic machinery is adapted to work in cold, and they lack the water-filled cells that would freeze and rupture. Lichens can dry out completely, becoming dormant in a desiccated state, then rehydrate and resume photosynthesis within minutes when moisture becomes available. During winter, lichens briefly photosynthesize on warmer days, grow slowly, and provide crucial food for animals like caribou and reindeer. Some hanging lichens, like old man's beard, can comprise up to 90% of caribou winter diet in some boreal forests. Despite containing relatively little nutritional value, caribou must eat enormous quantities to meet their needs. The freeze-thaw cycle at winter's edges, early and late winter, or during midwinter warm spells, creates unique conditions. When temperatures oscillate around freezing, repeated freeze-thaw events can damage or kill organisms. Ice forming in soil lifts and cracks surfaces, a process called frost heaving that can uproot small plants. For organisms, repeated freezing and thawing is more stressful than continuous cold because it requires repeatedly activating protective mechanisms. However, some organisms exploit these transitions. Certain springtails and mites are most active during freeze-thaw periods, feeding on other organisms killed by the stress. Some fungi disperse spores during brief thaws. The interface between frozen and thawed is a dynamic boundary where conditions change rapidly, creating opportunities for organisms adapted to instability rather than stable cold. Ponds and wetlands freeze differently than lakes, and this affects winter ecology profoundly. Shallow ponds may freeze solid, killing any fish present but allowing other organisms to survive. Frogs and turtles bury into mud at the bottom, sometimes beneath the ice layer. In an environment that stays just above freezing, they enter profound dormancy, slowing their metabolism to a crawl. Wood frogs can even freeze partially. As discussed earlier, painted turtles remain underwater, beneath ice, for up to 4 months without breathing. They extract small amounts of oxygen directly from water through specialized tissues in their throat, and, remarkably, can survive extended periods in near zero oxygen by switching to anaerobic metabolism, tolerating the buildup of lactic acid that would poison most vertebrates. Their shells also dissolve slightly, releasing calcium carbonate that buffers acid buildup. These adaptations allow turtles to essentially hibernate underwater, surviving conditions that would kill them within minutes during active periods. Winter moth caterpillars remain active through winter in some northern regions, feeding on evergreen needles during brief warm spells. These caterpillars produce antifreeze compounds that allow them to remain flexible and mobile at temperatures as low as 10 degrees Fahrenheit, They feed sporadically whenever temperatures rise above freezing, an unusual strategy in winter ecology. Most insects overwinter as dormant eggs, pupae, or hibernating adults. Remaining as caterpillars, an active life stage, is rare. Winter moths have evolved this strategy in response to predation pressure. Birds and parasitic wasps that hunt caterpillars are absent or inactive in winter, giving winter moth caterpillars a predator-free period for feeding. However, climate change is disrupting this system. As winters warm, some bird species that formerly migrated south now overwinter in northern areas, discovering this previously untapped winter food source, creating new predator-prey dynamics that hadn't existed before. Halfway through our exploration, a pattern emerges. Winter ecosystems stay alive not just through individual adaptation, but through continued activity in hidden spaces, beneath snow, under ice, in soil, within dormant bodies. What appears motionless and still at the surface conceals motion and life beneath. The subnivean zone hosts vast tunnel networks. Frozen soil continues decomposing organic matter. Ice-covered lakes protect active fish communities. Hibernating animals manage their metabolism with precision. This hidden activity means winter ecosystems are not shut down, but running at reduced speeds, idling rather than stopping, ready to accelerate when conditions improve. Winter is not absence, but transformation. Not ending, but continuation in forms less obvious. Operating in spaces we rarely observe. Sustained by strategies we're only beginning to understand. And imagine, even when everything seems empty, space is always full of activity, energy, life. The snow that looks blank above conceals a maze of tunnels below. The frozen lake that seems still protects fish swimming slowly in darkness. The dormant tree maintains living roots in warmer soil. Nothing is as empty as it first appears. Let each breath guide you to realize. Even stillness contains movement. Even silence contains sound. Even winter contains life. Imagine you're floating on a calm lake, but beneath the surface there's always gentle current, slow circulation that never quite stops. Your own breath is like this, continuous, rhythmic, never truly still. Now we continue the journey. Predator-prey relationships shift dramatically in winter. Snow reveals tracks, making prey more vulnerable to visual hunters. But it also limits predator movement, giving advantage to prey adapted for snow travel. Wolves hunting deer face this trade-off. Deep snow slows wolves, whose large paws still sink with each step, expending energy. But the same snow exhausts deer more severely. Their sharp hooves punch through crust, sometimes causing injuries. Wolves often follow established trails to save energy, and deer learn to avoid these paths. In some winters, snow conditions favor wolves, in others, deer. This dynamic balance means neither predator nor prey dominates consistently. Winter's variability itself maintains ecological balance by preventing either side from gaining permanent advantage. Crossbills, finches with mandibles that cross at the tips, are specialists on conifer seeds and demonstrate remarkable timing adaptations. Unlike most northern birds, crossbills can breed in midwinter, January or February, when conditions seem harshest. They do this because cone crops mature on different cycles depending on tree species and location, and crossbills track these cycles, breeding whenever cones are abundant. A winter cone crop represents concentrated nutrition, easier to harvest from snow-dusted trees than from dried summer cones. Crossbill nestlings grow quickly, and parents feed them regurgitated seed pulp. The unusual timing allows crossbills to raise multiple broods per year by breeding asynchronously with seasons, following food rather than calendar. This demonstrates how winter food sources, when reliable, can support reproduction as effectively as summer abundance. Mycorrhizal networks connect trees underground, allowing resource sharing between individuals even in winter. These fungal networks, sometimes called the wood wide web, link tree roots throughout forests. The fungi receive sugars from trees in exchange for delivering water and nutrients. Recent research shows these networks remain partially active through winter. Evergreen trees, which photosynthesize occasionally during sunny winter days, can send sugars through fungal connections to deciduous trees that are fully dormant. This cross-feeding supports forest health by keeping fungal partners alive and maintaining connectivity that will be crucial when spring arrives. Additionally, older, larger trees appear to subsidize younger trees through these networks, particularly in winter, when small trees have limited reserves. This cooperative network challenges the view of forests as collections of competing individuals, revealing them as interconnected communities where even winter isolation is not complete. Scavenging increases in importance during winter when hunting is more energy expensive. Ravens, crows, and magpies become crucial links in winter food webs by locating carcasses and opening them, making meat accessible to smaller scavengers that cannot tear through frozen hide. Wolves, in turn, tolerate ravens following their hunts because ravens help locate prey by scouting from the air. This mutualism means a wolf kill supports not just the wolf pack, but a succession of scavengers. First, foxes and coyotes sneak in after wolves leave. Then birds arrive, ravens, eagles, magpies. Finally, when the carcass is reduced to bones and frozen scraps, small mammals, insects, and eventually microorganisms continue the decomposition when spring thaws the remains. A single moose carcass can sustain parts of an ecosystem through an entire winter, its nutrients distributed across species through overlapping feeding times. Owls and shrews form an unexpected connection. Shrews remain active all winter beneath the snow, unable to hibernate because their extreme metabolism, heart rate up to 1,200 beats per minute, would require impossibly large fat reserves. They must eat every few hours or starve. This makes shrews abundant and active prey in the subnivean zone. Owls listen for their movements and plunge through snow to capture them. A pair of great gray owls raising young in late winter depends heavily on shrew populations. But shrews themselves are predators of insects, worms, and other small invertebrates. So the connection extends. Soil invertebrates support shrews, which support owls, creating a food chain that functions beneath and above snow simultaneously, linking subterranean and aerial worlds. Winter puts trees in a vulnerable state, dependent on stored resources to survive until spring. Some woodpeckers exploit this by excavating sap wells, rows of small holes drilled into bark that weep sap. Yellow-bellied sapsuckers create these sap wells in autumn before migrating, and other species like downy woodpeckers maintain and use them through winter, visiting them regularly to feed on the sugary sap and insects attracted to it. The sap flow represents stored energy the tree is losing, but the relatively small volume taken rarely harms healthy trees. More surprisingly, other animals benefit from sap wells. Hummingbirds in western mountains time their spring migration to follow advancing sap well activity northward, using them as energy sources when few flowers are yet blooming. Bats, squirrels, and warblers also visit sap wells. This demonstrates how one species' feeding behavior can create resources for many others, turning a tree's stored energy into a communal food source that helps multiple species through late winter and early spring. Snow quality affects entire communities. Powder snow provides excellent insulation for subnivean mammals, but poor structural support. Crusted snow, formed when surface layers partially melt and refreeze, can support the weight of larger animals like foxes and coyotes, allowing them to walk on top of snow rather than floundering. This gives predators access to areas they couldn't reach through deep powder, pressuring prey populations, but crust can also trap animals. Moose sometimes break through with one leg, while others support their weight, becoming vulnerable or injured. The condition of snow, powder, crust, depth, wetness ripples through ecosystems, affecting movement patterns, predation success, energy expenditure, and survival rates across multiple species. Snow is not simply frozen water, but a physical medium whose properties shape ecological interactions. Some trees produce extra seeds during years following fires or other disturbances, a strategy called musting. Many animals cache these seeds, burying them to retrieve later, but not all cached seeds are recovered. Squirrels, jays, and nutcrackers forget locations or die before retrieving all their stores. These forgotten seeds germinate in spring, and trees, in effect, use animals as dispersal agents. Winter is crucial to this relationship because frozen ground preserves buried seeds in good condition, preventing decay, and snow cover protects them from other seed eaters. Come spring, forgotten seed caches sprout, sometimes at considerable distances from parent trees, helping forests regenerate in new areas. The scatter-hoarding behavior of winter-active animals thus shapes forest structure and composition, distributing genetic diversity and colonizing disturbed areas. Lichens provide winter food not just to caribou but to flying squirrels, which are primarily herbivorous in winter when other food is scarce. Flying squirrels also eat fungi, another winter-available food source, and cache mushrooms in tree cavities during autumn. Their nighttime gliding, used to travel between feeding sites while avoiding predators, is actually more energy efficient than running on snow would be. Gliding from tree to tree bypasses the problem of traveling through deep drifts. Owls are the primary predators of flying squirrels, and the interaction between nocturnal predator and prey has driven both toward impressive adaptations. Silent flight in owls, gliding ability and vigilance in squirrels. Their winter interactions occur almost entirely in darkness, in forest canopies, a hidden ecosystem that most people never observe. Fish under ice form winter communities with surprising structure. In many lakes, different species occupy different depth zones. Pike, being ambush predators, prefer shallower areas near structure, submerged logs, weed beds, even in winter. Lake trout prefer deeper, colder water, yellow perch school in mid-water zones. These preferences create spatial separation that reduces competition for oxygen, which becomes limiting under ice, as aquatic plants die and decomposition consumes oxygen, while photosynthesis essentially stops. Some lakes develop severe oxygen depletion by late winter, a condition called winterkill, that can affect fish populations in shallow, productive lakes with heavy snow cover blocking light penetration. Winterkill reshapes fish communities, selecting for species tolerant of low oxygen. Crucian carp can survive months with almost no oxygen while eliminating sensitive species, demonstrating how winter conditions sort species into winners and losers. Parasites continue their life cycles in winter, though often in altered forms. Ticks that carry Lyme disease overwinter as nymphs or adults hidden in leaf litter beneath snow, protected from extreme cold. They remain dormant but alive, waiting for spring when they'll resume seeking hosts. Some parasites have winter-specific stages. Certain tapeworms use winter mortality of hosts as opportunities, remaining viable in carcasses and transferring to scavengers. Brainworm, a parasite of white-tailed deer, overwinters in snails that serve as intermediate hosts, these snails hibernating in soil. Even parasites shape winter ecology. Moose populations in some areas are declining, partly due to winter tick infestations, with individual moose hosting tens of thousands of ticks that drain blood and drive the moose to harmful grooming behavior, removing patches of fur and losing insulation, creating a spiral toward death. from combined parasitism and cold stress. Plant-insect relationships persist in winter through dormancy synchronization. Many insects overwinter inside plant tissues, galls, rolled leaves, under bark. The plant and insect enter dormancy simultaneously, both using photoperiod cues. When spring arrives, both resume activity in coordination, allowing the insect to complete its life cycle on fresh plant growth. Goldenrod galls, round swellings on goldenrod stems, contain fly larvae that have induced the plant to create protective structures around them. These larvae produce antifreeze compounds that allow them to survive temperatures down to -50 degrees inside their galls. The galls are highly visible in winter, and downy woodpeckers and chickadees have learned to find them, pecking through the gall to extract the nutritious larvae inside. So plant-insect mutualism becomes a plant-insect-bird interaction, with the bird exploiting the relationship between the other two. Snow depth affects plant survival by providing insulation or causing physical damage. Many low-growing alpine and Arctic plants depend on snow cover to protect them from wind and extreme cold. They've evolved to tolerate snow weight but not exposure. In these communities, plants on windswept ridges where snow is blown away experience higher mortality than plants in slight depressions where snow accumulates. But excessive snow can also harm plants by prolonging the duration of snow cover into spring, shortening the growing season. Plants adapted to deep snow environments have rapid spring growth strategies, while plants adapted to shallow snow environments are hardier against cold but slower growing. These different strategies create micro-habitat specialization, with plant community composition shifting across distances of just a few feet based on subtle topography that affects snow accumulation. Birds that remain active in winter form mixed species feeding flocks, a strategy that improves survival. Chickadees, newthatches, kinglets, and small woodpeckers travel together, with each species bringing different foraging skills. Chickadees hang from twigs to reach seed clusters. Newthatches walk down tree trunks head first, finding insects in crevices others miss. Kinglets glean insects from needle clusters. Woodpeckers excavate insects from wood. Together, the flock covers more foraging space more efficiently than individuals could, and having more eyes watching for predators means each bird can spend more time feeding and less time vigilantly scanning. These flocks maintain loose territories through winter, the same group occupying the same forest patch for months. When one bird discovers a rich food source, others benefit. The sociality of winter flocks demonstrates that even in a harsh season, cooperation improves individual outcomes. Now we understand that winter ecosystems stay alive partly through interconnection. No organism survives in isolation. Predators depend on prey, scavengers depend on predators, and even plants depend on animals for seed dispersal and soil maintenance. These connections often cross habitats. Owls above snow hunt shrews below snow. Trees in soil connect with fungi that connect with other trees. Woodpecker sap wells created in trees feed birds, bats, and insects. Cached seeds forgotten by squirrels become tomorrow's forests. Winter simplifies ecosystems, reducing the number of active species and visible interactions, but the remaining connections are essential, each thread in the web critical, because redundancy is reduced. The ecosystem becomes more delicate in winter, more dependent on each connection persisting. Yet, this creates resilience through tight integration, everything supporting everything else. Freeze concentration occurs in soil water, affecting nutrient availability. As water freezes, pure ice crystals form, while dissolved salts, nutrients, and other compounds concentrate in remaining liquid water. This means the unfrozen water in partially frozen soil has much higher nutrient concentrations than summer soil water. For organisms active in winter, bacteria, fungi, plant roots near the surface. This represents opportunity. Resources are more accessible, requiring less energy to extract. Recent research suggests some plants may actually take up nutrients during winter warm spells, particularly in evergreen species with active roots. This challenges the old view that winter is a time of complete dormancy for plants, revealing instead a period of reduced but continued activity, with occasional bursts of growth when conditions permit. Amphibians have diverse winter strategies. American toads burrow below the frost line, sometimes 3 feet deep, entering profound dormancy where breathing and heart rate slow to nearly imperceptible levels. Spring peepers freeze in shallow hiding spots, as do chorus frogs, using the freeze-tolerant strategy we discussed with wood frogs. Salamanders retreat to deep rock crevices or underground burrows, often communally, dozens of individuals sharing a hibernation site. These aggregations serve multiple purposes: conserving moisture in a group, maintaining slightly warmer temperatures through shared body heat, and perhaps ensuring reproductive opportunities when spring arrives, since mates are already nearby. The timing of emergence is crucial. Emerge too early, and a late freeze can kill. Emerge too late, and prime breeding habitat might be claimed by competitors. Amphibians track soil temperature and, in some species, may actually advance their development during winter, preparing to emerge rapidly when conditions permit. Dead wood, called coarse woody debris by ecologists, becomes especially important in winter. Fallen logs and standing dead trees harbor overwintering insects in galleries beneath bark. Small mammals use hollow logs as winter dens, insulated by decaying wood. Woodpeckers excavate cavities in dead wood, creating shelter that other birds and mammals use. The slow decomposition of wood by fungi continues through winter, releasing nutrients and maintaining structure that shapes snow accumulation patterns. Logs create sheltered spaces where subnivean zones develop differently than in open areas. Recent studies show that forests with abundant coarse woody debris support more diverse winter communities than forests where dead wood has been removed. Dead wood is not waste to be cleared but essential habitat, perhaps even more critical in winter than summer, when alternative shelter is scarcer. Mosses remain green under snow, photosynthesizing briefly when sunlight penetrates or during thaws. These ancient plants, among the first to colonize land hundreds of millions of years ago, have remarkable cold tolerance. They can freeze solid and thaw without damage, their simple cellular structure more resilient than vascular plants. During winter thaws, when other plants are still dormant, mosses resume photosynthesis within hours of warming, taking advantage of every opportunity to produce energy. They also absorb water directly through their leaves, allowing rapid rehydration after winter drought. Mosses provide winter habitat for many invertebrates, their dense mats insulating the soil surface and maintaining slightly warmer temperatures. They also contribute to nutrient cycling, trapping wind-blown dust and processing it into soil. In many ecosystems, especially northern forests, mosses are keystone species. Their presence dramatically affects ecosystem function, despite their small stature. Climate change is altering winter ecology in ways we're only beginning to understand. The Arctic is warming about twice as fast as the global average, a phenomenon called Arctic amplification, with winter temperatures increasing especially rapidly. This means shorter winters, more freeze-thaw cycles, less consistent snow cover, and earlier spring onset. Species adapted to long, stable winters, like wolverines that den in persistent snowdrifts, face shrinking habitat. Meanwhile, species from warmer regions are expanding northward, encountering winter conditions they're marginally adapted for, creating novel species interactions. Deer ticks, which require relatively mild winters, are establishing populations further north, bringing Lyme disease into regions where it was previously absent. Winter ecology is not static but rapidly changing, with consequences rippling through food webs as species' winter survival rates shift. Migration timing becomes mismatched with food availability, and new competitors and predators invade ecosystems that had been protected by cold. Trees communicate chemical signals, even in winter. When insects attack trees during the growing season, the trees release volatile organic compounds, chemical signals, that warn nearby trees, which then increase their own chemical defenses. Recent research suggests some of these signals may persist into winter, adsorbed onto bark surfaces or into snow, potentially providing early warning to trees emerging from dormancy when insect populations might already be active. Additionally, root-to-root communication through mycorrhizal networks may continue at low levels through winter. The idea that trees have memory and can prepare for future threats based on past experiences is gaining support. If trees do retain information about previous insect outbreaks, winter might be when they're processing these responses chemically, preparing defenses for deployment immediately when spring awakens the forest and its hungry insects. Winter storms redistribute nutrients across ecosystems. Wind blowing across frozen lakes picks up snow and carries it onto surrounding land, depositing lake-derived nutrients, phosphorus, nitrogen from aquatic organisms, into forests where they fertilize terrestrial plants come spring. Ice storms coat trees and break branches, causing immediate damage, but also pruning canopies and opening forest structure, creating light gaps that benefit understory plants. Heavy snow breaks branches, enriching the forest floor with woody debris. Each storm is a disturbance but also a redistributor, moving energy and materials in ways that increase ecosystem complexity. The variability of winter weather, some years harsh, others mild, some areas buried in snow, others windswept, prevents any single winter-adapted strategy from being optimal, maintaining diversity by ensuring different conditions favor different approaches. Lichens and mosses serve as winter insulation for tree bark, helping protect cambium, the living growth tissue just under bark, from extreme cold and sudden temperature swings. Bark itself insulates, but a thick covering of lichens and mosses provides additional protection, particularly on the north sides of trees in northern latitudes, where the coldest temperatures and harsh winds occur. This relationship benefits the non-vascular plants as well, as they have stable substrate and access to nutrients running down the bark in water when snow melts during thaws. Old-growth forests have particularly abundant lichen and moss growth, creating microclimates on tree surfaces that support invertebrate communities, mites, springtails, tiny spiders, active even in winter when opportunities arise. A single old tree trunk covered in these organisms is itself an ecosystem, a vertical habitat supporting dozens of species through the cold months. The insulation value of fur and feathers becomes critical as body size decreases. Small animals have high surface area to volume ratios, meaning they lose heat rapidly. A shrew, weighing a fraction of an ounce, must generate enormous amounts of heat to maintain body temperature. Shrews have dense fur, but physics works against them. They simply have too much skin surface relative to body mass. This is why most small mammals either hibernate or remain beneath snow where temperatures are moderated. Birds face similar challenges, but their feathers provide remarkable insulation. Birds fluff their feathers to trap air, increasing insulation value dramatically. A chickadee at -20 degrees may look like a round ball of fluff, having raised every feather to create maximum air space. At night, birds tuck their heads under wings and stand on one foot, while drawing the other up into breast feathers, reducing exposed surface area. Every adaptation toward retaining heat matters when you're a half-ounce creature, facing a temperature gradient of over 100 degrees between inside and outside. Interconnection means that changes affecting one species ripple outward. If warming winters reduce deep snow accumulation, subnivean habitats shrink, affecting voles and mice. Smaller rodent populations mean less food for owls, foxes, and weasels. If predator populations decline, other prey species might increase, altering vegetation browsing pressure, which affects plant communities, which changes available seeds, which impact seed-eating birds and rodents. Meanwhile, changing plant communities affect soil microbes, which influences nutrient cycling, which changes what trees can grow, which provides different habitat structure, starting the cascade again. No change is isolated. This is perhaps the deepest answer to our question. Winter ecosystems stay alive through connection. Each organism depends on others, directly or indirectly, through chains of relationship that sustain the whole. When one link weakens, the entire web adjusts, adapts, or sometimes unravels. Resilience emerges not from individual toughness, but from the network itself, from redundancy and diversity, creating stability through complexity. You might be feeling tired now. That's perfectly fine. Breathe slowly. Feel the cycles. Snow falls. Snow melts. Water freezes. Water flows. Trees grow. Trees rest. Trees grow again. Animals wake. Animals sleep. Wake. Sleep. All are circles, cycles, endless patterns. Like your breath, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. A small cycle within vast natural rhythms. You are also part of that eternal movement. You don't need to hold on to anything. Let everything unfold in its perfect order, like seasons slowly rotating through the year, unhurried, unresisting, simply existing. Feel yourself as part of these ancient patterns, born from them, returning to them. Just another wave in an endless cycle. We're almost there now. Winter is not, despite life, but essential to it. Many seeds require cold stratification, a period of cold, moist conditions, before they can germinate. This ensures seeds don't sprout during brief autumn warm spells, only to be killed by later frosts. Apple seeds need 90 days of cold. Some wildflower seeds need weeks or months. Without winter's cold, these plants simply couldn't reproduce. The cold breaks down chemical inhibitors in the seed coat, allows moisture to penetrate, and signals that conditions are appropriate for growth. Insects that require multiple years to complete their life cycle depend on winters to pace their development. Some beetles spend 2 years as larvae before pupating. The winter breaks allow synchronized emergence, all adults appearing the same spring, facilitating mating. Without winter pauses, populations would be asynchronous, with adults emerging scattered across months or years, making reproduction less successful. Winter rest rejuvenates perennial plants. During dormancy, damaged tissues repair, reserves rebuild, and developmental programs reset. Trees that don't experience adequate winter chilling sometimes fail to flower properly in spring. Orchards in warming climates face reduced fruit yields because warmer winters don't provide enough chilling hours, and the trees remain confused about season progression. Many birds require winter separation from breeding grounds to allow time for molt, a process energetically expensive and made safer by doing it away from breeding areas where territories must be defended and young raised. Winter grounds provide feeding opportunities with less competition, allowing birds to rebuild their bodies before returning north for another demanding breeding season. Winter snow stores water, releasing it gradually during spring melt. This moderates flood risk and provides steady stream flow through late spring and summer in regions dependent on snowmelt. Without winter snowpack, rivers fed by mountain ranges would surge violently during spring rains, then drop to low flows by midsummer, profoundly affecting aquatic ecosystems and human water supplies alike. Cold temperatures reduce populations of pathogens and pests. Harsh winters diminish populations of disease-carrying insects and many plant pests that cannot survive hard freezes. Forest health improves after cold winters. Warmer winters, conversely, allow pests to survive in greater numbers and expand their ranges, stressing tree populations that evolved with the protection periodic severe winters provided. The quieter pace of winter forests offers respite for prey species from constant predation pressure. With many predators hibernating or having migrated, prey populations can rebuild. Winter is not just survival, but recovery time, a seasonal breath that prevents ecosystems from running constantly at the intensive pace summer demands. Permafrost, though threatened by warming, has preserved ancient ecosystems for thousands of years. Frozen mammoths discovered in Siberia contain DNA, gut contents, even viable seeds. This preservation creates scientific opportunities and reminds us that winter's cold is a kind of time capsule, freezing moments that might otherwise vanish. Animals like bears emerge from winter dormancy in near-perfect health despite months without eating or moving. Their muscles don't atrophy, their bones don't weaken. Scientists study bear hibernation, hoping to understand how to prevent muscle and bone loss in humans, bedridden patients, astronauts in microgravity. Winter dormancy contains medical secrets that might help humanity. Snow reflects light, brightening winter landscapes, even under overcast skies. This reflected light can reach understory plants, giving them brief opportunities for photosynthesis on sunny days when normally they'd be deeply shaded by canopy trees. Winter light, though weak, is sometimes more democratic than summer's intense but hoarded sunshine. Seasonal migration creates global connections. A warbler leaving New England in autumn links temperate forests with tropical rainforests. Arctic terns connect polar regions with each other. These migrations mean that protecting winter habitat for migratory species requires international cooperation. A bird's survival depends on habitats thousands of miles apart being protected simultaneously. Winter shapes evolution by creating strong selection pressure. Only the best adapted survive to reproduce. This drives the remarkable diversity of winter strategies we've explored. Hibernation, torpor, migration, freeze tolerance, antifreeze proteins. Winter is a filter but also a forge, creating new adaptations through the pressure of survival. People, too, are shaped by winter. Cultures in cold climates developed cooperative strategies, food storage, complex clothing, and heated shelters. Winter demanded innovation. Some scientists suggest that seasonal climates, with their cycles of plenty and scarcity, drove human cognitive development more than tropical climates, where resources are available year-round. We are, perhaps, winter's children in ways we rarely acknowledge. Winter in one hemisphere is summer in another. When northern ecosystems rest, southern ecosystems thrive, and vice versa. This global balance means Earth always has places of plenty and places of scarcity, and migratory species connect them, moving energy and nutrients between regions as they follow seasons around the globe. So could winter ecosystems stay alive? Yes, not just stay alive but need winter to thrive. Cold stratifies seeds. Dormancy repairs tissues. Snow stores water. Freeze reduces pests. Scarcity selects for fitness. Without winter, many species would fail to complete life cycles. Ecosystems would destabilize. The question isn't whether winter ecosystems survive cold, but whether they could survive without it. There's beauty in winter dormancy, in the patience of waiting. A seed lies frozen in soil, holding potential. A tree stands leafless but alive, roots quietly active below. A bear sleeps in darkness, nourishing cubs with milk produced from stored fat. These images speak to something beyond ecology, to endurance, faith, hidden strength. Winter teaches balance. Summer is growth, expansion, taking. Winter is rest, contraction, giving back. Leaves fall and nourish soil. Animals die and feed scavengers. Nothing is wasted. Everything cycles. The ecosystem breathes in through summer, out through winter, a yearly rhythm essential to health. Darkness itself serves a purpose. Long winter nights allow nocturnal hunters to extend foraging time. Owls, foxes, ermines thrive in extended darkness. For them, winter nights are not limitation but expansion of opportunity, a reversal of summer's brightness that constrained their hunting to brief twilight hours. The return of light in spring is remarkable, partly because winter darkness preceded it. Without the quieter time, renewal means less. Ecosystems emerging from winter burst with activity. Frog choruses, bird songs, flower blooms, all compressed into frantic weeks. This intensity exists because winter held everything back, creating pressure that spring releases in explosive growth. We often fear scarcity, but winter ecosystems demonstrate that scarcity is not failure. It's part of the cycle. Abundance prepares for scarcity. Scarcity drives adaptation. Together they create resilience. An ecosystem never experiencing scarcity would lack the adaptations that allow survival when conditions inevitably deteriorate. Winter makes ecosystems stronger, not despite being hard, but because of it. Perhaps winter's deepest gift is teaching acceptance. Trees cannot flee cold, they adapt. Bears cannot avoid winter, they hibernate. Seeds cannot rush spring, they wait. There is wisdom in this acceptance, in working with reality rather than against it, in knowing when to push forward and when to rest. Every organism active in winter carries inside it the story of its ancestors' survival. Each adaptation, every antifreeze protein, every layer of insulating fur, every deep hibernation represents thousands of generations of trial, failure, success, refinement. Winter ecosystems are living museums of evolutionary problem-solving. As climate changes, winter ecology transforms. Some species will struggle, others will adapt or expand. The ecosystems described here are not static, but shifting, always have been, always will be. Winter itself is not permanent on evolutionary timescales. Ice ages come and go. What remains constant is life's ability to find strategies, to persist, to evolve solutions we cannot yet imagine. Sitting quietly in a winter forest, you might hear almost nothing. Wind through bare branches, snow falling from a limb, perhaps a distant crow, but beneath the silence, everything described here is happening. Voles tunnel through subnivean zones. Trees' roots grow slowly. Fungi decompose leaves. Bacteria process nutrients. Dormant seeds wait in soil. The silence is full, not empty. How do winter ecosystems stay alive? Through cold stratification and dormancy, through antifreeze and hibernation, through tunnels beneath snow and roots beneath ice, through migration across hemispheres and caching seeds in autumn, through community connections and evolved adaptations, through patience, acceptance, and cycles of scarcity and abundance. But ultimately, winter ecosystems stay alive because life itself is not a struggle against seasons, but a dance with them. Winter is not obstacle but partner, not enemy but essential rhythm, not ending but turning, the quiet breath between growth and renewal, the darkness necessary for light to mean anything at all. And so, our quiet journey through winter's hidden life comes to a gentle close. We've traveled from snow-covered surfaces that seemed lifeless to the bustling subnivean zones beneath, discovering along the way that winter is not absence, but transformation. From hibernating bears whose hearts beat slowly in darkness to tiny shrews racing through tunnels under snow, we've glimpsed how winter ecosystems are both harsh and nurturing, demanding and generous. Winter reminds us that rest is as essential as growth. Much of the fascinating activity happens in silence, beneath snow, under ice, in the secret spaces where roots still reach and fungi still connect. Trees teach us patience. Hibernators teach us trust. Without winter's cold, seeds wouldn't know when to wake. By pausing to notice, we glimpse the extraordinary in the ordinary, that frozen landscapes hold as much life as summer meadows, just in forms more subtle, more patient, more attuned to cycles we've forgotten how to honor. And now, in these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can, as deep as possible. Think about the unity of every organism we've discussed. Voles and owls, trees and fungi, snow and soil, all connected, all part of cycles larger than themselves. Think about how water cycles through clouds, rivers, snow, and melt. Everything is connected, everything returns, everything flows. You are part of that flow, that cycle, that eternal return. Let your entire being dissolve into the rhythm of nature, into the breath of winter forests, into the stillness of snow-covered ground, into the patience of seeds waiting in cold darkness, knowing that spring will come, that cycles continue, that rest is preparation for growth. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left between you and the quiet earth. Only peace, only cycles, only the gentle knowledge that everything, eventually, rests. If these calm stories from Earth helped you breathe a little easier tonight, passing them along could help another tired soul drift into rest. One quiet share, one peaceful night at a time. But there's no need to do anything now. Nothing at all. You've traveled far tonight, farther than most journeys take you, beneath snow, under ice, into the hidden spaces where winter ecosystems persist. You can allow these thoughts of winter survival to fade now, like snow melting in spring sunlight, leaving only the peaceful calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if snow is gently settling over you, covering everything in soft white silence. If sleep comes, let it carry you like a seed drifting into frozen soil, smoothly, inevitably, into a realm where time and weight no longer matter, where you rest as trees rest, as bears rest, as frozen ponds rest beneath their ice. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm, in the space beneath the snow where temperature is stable, in the subnivean zone of your own consciousness, protected, insulated, at peace. Tomorrow, winter will still be teaching its lessons. Ecosystems will still be adapting, surviving, thriving through cold. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, sleepy scientist. And remember, winter is not death, but patience. Not ending, but waiting. Not cold emptiness, but full silence. The slow breath of earth between seasons. Essential, beautiful, and complete. Fall asleep to gentle facts. Good night.